Welcome into the final edition of New Track Record Podcast for 2022. Caleb Hatch and Justin Kinney with you. Hello, Justin.
Hello, Caleb. Did you finish your Christmas shopping?
I did.
Did you?
I did. I was looking for one item that could not be found as a stocking stuffer, but I had been looking for this item for several weeks. So it was one of those seasonal items that...
So something for me, I presume.
Yes. Something for your stocking. Yes,
now,
absolutely.
What is the approach now as a newlywed? Mm-hmm. And I don't know how long that moniker can be used. I don't know if it's a year or so. But what's the gift situation then for your spouse and her for you?
Yeah, so we set a budget number. And it's gone up over the years, but we set a budget now. This also includes stuff for stockings, which is something she really wanted to do, but all in about $150.
Okay. And nobody's ever broken the rules, gone over $150 for a special occasion.
It's
happened. It's a
guideline. It's not a hard and fast, but
nobody's went out and dropped $500 on something.
No.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
No.
All right.
That's never a concern.
We at home, wife and I, don't get gifts for each other. It started when we were young, just newlyweds, and had Noah, and we were in a situation where we just didn't have any much extra money. And we said, we don't need anything, whatever. And it's just kind of continued. And let me tell you, it is liberating. Let me tell you what is all right. You're not giving me anything. Okay, cool. We're set. All right, another year, and it's for the kids. It's not for us. So that's one less thing you got to worry about.
It's not super hard for me now because she'll tell me stuff that
you guys are both laid back. There's not a lot of pressure on that.
No,
right?
No.
Yeah,
she already knows what I got her. She knew a long time ago because the box literally that shipped said what it was, and she expected me to get that for her. Well,
and you had to poke holes in it so it could breathe and all that stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah. Of course.
But yeah, you guys are pretty laid back, so nothing crazy. So yeah, I imagine it goes pretty well. So.
And I already know one of the things that she's getting me, at least I assume she's getting for me, since she was asking my brother about it over Thanksgiving, and I could hear her in the other room asking about it. It's a racing related thing. It's those headsets have Bluetooth, and you can listen. It's one of the, not like a scanner, like a fancy, several $100, but I think it's probably $75.
Did you yell from that? I can hear you.
Yeah, no, I did. I was I told her, I was I could hear what you're asking about. She's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, you don't know how to whisper. How many times do I have to tell you? She was like, but you were in the kitchen. I was in the living room. And I'm like, yeah, I could hear you because you can't whisper.
You can't.
She's like, I was whispering. I'm like, no, you weren't.
Capable of whispering.
She's incapable of whispering. So.
Well, we wish all our listeners a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Final show, as you mentioned, of 2022. And we'll do a bit of a review, but also looking ahead to hopefully happy times in IndyCar in 2023. We can hope, right? It's the time of optimism, I guess.
Yeah, of course. And we look ahead to 2023, and I guess a few takeaways from 2022 before we look ahead. We're going to do our IndyCar wish list, and we'll pick 5 things each that we wish for in 2023. Some of them will probably be similar, which is not a surprise. But you look at 2022, obviously you had some interesting storylines. First time Indy 500 winner, Will Power winning his second championship, which is crazy to think it took him that long to get his second championship, let alone took him a long time to get his Indy 500 win. I mean, he's been good for so long. And competitive, yes. I think there were tracks where we thought they wouldn't race well, that they did race well, and vice versa. But I think the biggest positive was just the consistency in the schedule, and Iowa coming back and being a success, I think, was probably the storyline. It
was good. Consistency in the schedule. You had a decent championship race, a decent Indianapolis 500 with some excitement. It was all kind of, it was nothing to really get you absolutely floored or shocked or surprised or happy, but it was also not coming out of a year where you felt totally dejected. Even after the last month, 2 months of a lot of negative stuff, and I'm sure we'll get into it, is you're still looking back at a pretty decent year for IndyCar. I mean, ratings went up. They didn't go up as much as we hoped they would, but they went up. And you had a decent season. No major issues in terms of injuries. And so by and large, a lot to be thankful for. But as it goes, we'll talk more about the negative, I'm sure, than the positive.
Oh, yeah. And there was a negative story that came out this week surrounding IndyCar and iRacing and their licensing agreement coming to an end at the end of this year. I've never done iRacing.
Me neither.
So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this. Is it a bad look? Yes. Is it as bad as everyone's saying on social media?
No.
Probably not. But it is something where you can get IndyCar in front of people, and taking that away is not necessarily a good thing.
When you're a sport that's starved for any eyes on your sport, and you put yourself in a position where you could potentially lose those eyes, it's a bad look. And for IndyCar, basically what it comes down to is they made an exclusivity deal with Motorsport Games that canceled everything else out. And from what I understand, NASCAR has its exclusivity clause for video games with certain entities, but it also has different deals with iRacing and all that other stuff. So this is very unique in the fact that IndyCar is putting all its eggs in one basket in Motorsport Games. And as recently as last week, talking to Adam Stern on the podcast, a lot of uncertainty with Motorsport Games and IndyCar going forward. Do we see that game in May? How good is it? Is it a dumpster fire? Is it quality? Is it anything in between? So what we're seeing is a vocal minority with the iRacing crew, but it is also very much an asset to IndyCar in the sense that it brings people in that may be then interested in the sport. And I don't think there's no way of denying that. And it's just another disconnect between IndyCar and younger demographics, because the majority of people that do iRacing are young people that then may fall in love with IndyCar and watch it. So once again, another strike in the category of old, traditional, set in their ways, my way or the highway type attitude that we're seeing with the IndyCar current ownership. I'm not saying that they're unwilling to learn, but they're also advanced in their age and back in my day type mentality, right? And no connection whatsoever to younger demographics. And this is just another check mark in the category of IndyCar is out of touch with young fans in 2022, 2023.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, is just making sure you're trying new things, and being a part of iRacing is just a way to get in front of a different audience. Look, iRacing, we've sponsored iRacing events with the podcast as a way to get in front of a new audience. And for those of you who discover the podcast via iRacing, welcome. We're glad you're here.
And that'll continue, by the way.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah, correct. That will continue. And you just have to be open to new ideas. And I think this offseason, with all the negative news about marketing and IndyCar saying they're making a significant investment, as we talked about last week, in the marketing, and we don't know how much money that is. We don't know how much money they invested before. They're not going to tell us, but it sounds like they're trying to do some new things, and it's a start, but we need to continue to see growth in that area.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And we brought it up on Twitter, and it kind of blew up of sorts in terms of a comment that we made. And I'll read it for word from word is IndyCar needs an infusion of young, dynamic, diverse personalities into its brain trust, and less old dudes unwilling to recognize and embrace change. That's the big thing. Is I know, Caleb, certain people in the IndyCar brain trust that are older than us, and trust us, we're out of touch with what younger demographics are into. More me than you, but we're both advancing in that age that's a younger group that you need to tackle. And I'm not going to pretend to know all the solutions to try to grab those people, and let alone people that are 20, 30, 40 years older than I am. And it has very much become, when you look at it from the outside in, is a lot of older, lack of diversity people that are in control and making decisions of IndyCar in marketing and communications and everything that goes into the series. And it's costing IndyCar dearly in terms of the younger demographics. And this iRacing deal, which somebody signed months ago, and it said, okay, motorsport games, yeah, we're all in. Didn't read the fine print, didn't understand what that meant. And iRacing reached out, and we've seen that on message boards, September, August, reached out to IndyCar and say, hey, this is something that's coming up at the end of the year. Never heard back. Finally, IndyCar, after the outcry yesterday, as we record this on Thursday, Wednesday, the outcry that came out, and IndyCar responds with a bland statement and saying, oh, we value all this blah, 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 and all the BS that was put out there, is nothing's changing, and you're losing this avenue. And it's once again another missed opportunity and a lack of real comprehension of what this series needs to do to be relevant to younger demographics. Is a disappointment. And I guarantee you, if you took the median age of the brain trust in IndyCar, you're hovering around 50, 55 years old. And that's ridiculous. That's crazy. You're not going to be able to be in touch with the younger demographic of people with a bunch of old dudes calling the shots, plain and simple.
Marketing is about attracting a younger audience, right? I mean, isn't that the
new
goal?
New audience, new people.
So people can be bigger spenders as they get older.
Yes.
You got to capture them when they're young, right?
And this is the reality of how marketing works. And being in journalism for a long time, and in newspapers in particular, you understood this because it was a very old demographic that was your primary audience. And that's what you're looking at with IndyCar as well. And the conversations ad nauseum was, how do we capture younger demographic of people in print media? And you would try everything to try to get them, whether it was pictures and videos and snippets on social media and all this stuff. But it was trying something, and it just doesn't even appear to me on the outside that IndyCar even values that question that says, how do we really cater to the younger demographics? And I think it's a bunch of old people trying to make those decisions as opposed to hiring people that are actually in those demographics to make those decisions. That's really what it feels like. And that's like Indy Next. That feels like somebody that's in a corner office at 63 years old saying, I'm going to take the E out of Next, and this is a hip new thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
doesn't it?
It's trying
It just seems
too
like
hard.
something our dad would come up with.
Yeah.
Or even us at this point at our age is, hey, that's hip, right? I'm going to show up and take the E out of this, and it's NXT. And you're going, Dad, just go away. That's really what it feels like, doesn't it?
It also, let alone the fact that they didn't think that, there's like a wrestling series that's very popular that's already
and trademarked, probably.
Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah, the iRacing thing. I think the biggest disappointment is, you'll continue to be able to. There'll be little change. However, the fact of the matter is, you can still race the IR18, which is the car, on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but you won't be able to have officially sanctioned events like the iRacing Indy 500, which is a huge draw
which is
every
a big
year
deal.
In sim racing.
Or at different tracks that IndyCar
They can't even
races.
broadcast those races that use the IR18, DW12, or IR05. So a lot of the popular series.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe a couple years ago when they had the iRacing series, that wouldn't be able to be a thing right now.
Yeah, because IndyCar doesn't. Yeah, they're not licensed.
They don't license it. They can't broadcast it.
Yeah, and they're so happy, to have this motorsport games thing. Look, I'll believe it when I see it.
And I'll believe it when I see it, and it's a quality game. I'm expecting a game to come out in May. I'm not expecting it to be good.
I'm not even expecting a game to come out in May. I guess is my concern, because we've seen all the issues that Motorsport Games has had, and you can dive in online, just do an internet search. I'm not smart enough to understand all of these business terms and everything that's going down, but it doesn't look positive.
When your board of directors resigns, that's not a good sign.
Yes.
And let's be honest, before all this stuff went down, it's not like Motorsport Games was known to put out really, really good games. Ask NASCAR fans how Motorsport Games has done with that license. Not very good.
No. So that's the drama with iRacing. Okay, let's get to, I guess, the positive wishful thinking that we have going into 2023. So we'll pick 5 and look. Some of these are probably going to be similar, so we'll just expand upon it. I think the number one thing that I'm looking for in 2023 is very simple. Higher TV ratings. Continue to go up.
That's a wish list, right? Yeah, that's a wish list. So is there a specific number you're looking for, or anything is good? Up is up.
Yeah, I think I'm looking for all the network races to get 1 million plus.
Oh.
And
it's attainable.
These are attainable.
Possible.
These are attainable numbers. And then for the Indy 500 to be closer to the numbers in 2021 than they were in 2022. So Indy 500 to be up significantly over this year's race because the TV ratings were not great. Now, granted, the crowd in person was great since it's the first time it was fully accessible since 2019, but you're really hoping for a big increase in TV rating. And I know that comes down to the raceability of this car on ovals, which has been not very good since the addition of the aero screen. But I think the number one thing that I'm wishing for is increased TV ratings, because TV ratings, that helps everything else.
Yes, it does. And in the core of everything, as we've talked about, Caleb, and to your credit, I will give you credit for this wish list, is if there's more people watching, then everything else becomes more attainable.
Yeah, look what we've seen out of F1. I just saw today or yesterday that The Athletic is hiring an F1 writer.
Really?
Yeah.
Will they travel?
I would assume.
I wonder. Yeah, that's big time.
They're global. The Athletic was bought up by the New York Times, I think earlier this year, and the popularity of F1 in the U.S. exceeds that of IndyCar right now. Now,
it does. Totally.
I don't know if that's sustainable long term. I think we'll see how it plays out as people say, this is cool to watch, but it's not accessible. I think that will eventually catch up to them. And what they've done in the U.S., COTA, Miami, and then next year Vegas, 2 out of the 3 races being well outside the price range for the average fan.
But I'll
see if that catches up to them.
I'll push back on that a little bit, because I think, and I've changed my tune here with Formula One, is it definitely is unattainable for a lot of people to go, and it's very expensive. But I think people gravitate towards that. Look at what's popular with pop culture in this country is celebrity news.
True.
Is all these people that have monumentally more money and status than any of us will ever have, and you're fascinated by what they do, who they're with, what they eat, where they live, all this stuff. And I think that sense of inaccessibility to Formula One is a perverse desire for people to pay attention to it. I'm never going to be a part of that, and it's exciting to me. And I contribute it to how people are with celebrities. You're never going to be
the glamour, right?
Yeah, the glitz and the glamour, and I'm never going to live that life, but I want to be a part of that in any way possible. So I'm going to read the magazines. I'm going to watch the races. In terms of the transition between celebrities and Formula One, I think it's a turn on for people and a desire for people to be a fan of something that is unattainable to them. People say, the paddock availability, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like the movies in the sense that it's an escape from your reality. So F1 can be like that escape.
Yes.
And racing, to be fair, is glamorous. Like, yes, it also can be very damaging and sad, but when everyone is healthy, and then even the crashes, when everyone walks away, you're like, wow, that's crazy. Like, these are modern daredevils, if you will. Like, it's a modern Coliseum. That's what racing kind of has become.
Right.
And so that is appealing. It's a draw.
It's a draw. And it's great for you to, people say I can go right in the paddock, or I can go right into pit lane and walk around, and it's great. But I also think that people, when you're watching a Formula One race and you see David Beckham and Tom Cruise and Megan Thee Stallion and all these people on pit lane and walking around, is, oh my gosh, this is a huge thing.
Patrick Mahomes, a.k.a. Paulo Banchero.
Yeah, so this is a huge deal that I can't be a part of, and that's appealing to me. And I know it's like some perverse mindset, but you look at, let's say, the Emmy Awards, and it's the exact same thing. There's a bunch of celebrities. Oh my gosh, this is a huge deal that I have zero part of, but I'm fascinated by it because I want to see who wins this award or who's wearing this dress or who's with this person. That's what it is with Formula One.
We've been told to care about it, essentially.
Yes. And you look at it, and because these celebrities or these people are there and you can't get in there, that means it's important.
It's the whole... You can't have it, but you want to get as close as you can to it.
Exactly. And that's why people that claim, well, why would you like Formula One when you can get in right into the paddock or right into to pit lane with IndyCar it's not a you and me thing. It's a status thing.
IndyCar is attainable.
Yes.
F1 is unattainable.
Which is cool for you and me, but for the normal person, I can go walk around with these cars, or at Formula One, I can't even get in there. That must be crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing, right? That's the appeal. That's the celebrity type thing. It's the red carpet type thing. Oh my gosh, that's exclusivity. I can't get in there. That's cool.
The celebrities there.
Yes.
So if IndyCar can get the TV ratings where, not that you want to make it unattainable, because I think the access to the drivers and the series for fans is a huge positive compared to NASCAR and Formula One. You don't want to get rid of that, but you do want to make it seem exclusive. And you can do things while making it affordable while also making it exclusive. And
we're
obviously
seeing that in Iowa, right? Are we trying to see that with Iowa with the ticket costs?
Yeah. And again, increased TV ratings means more money for ads, means more money for everyone. Look, it just means that there's more buzz.
Interest, everything.
Yes.
Yep.
So again, my first wish, plain and simple, TV ratings going up. Now, I'm not asking for them to go up an absurd amount. That'd be great. But just you want to see year over year improvement. And I think that is attainable. What's your first big wish?
First big wish, and doesn't mean it's my number one big wish. It's the one that comes to my head. I want to see Joseph Newgarden win the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
He's not getting old per se, but I think we're reaching that point where you start worrying if it's ever going to happen for Joseph Newgarden.
It's hard to believe that's not more of a conversation.
Right?
Like, you would think that's going to be more of a conversation with how good he's been as a driver since coming to Penske. I mean, not that he was bad before, but I mean, his championship finishes since coming to Penske, every year he's top 2, top 3. So, I mean, this is a guy who's really, really good. In fact, his worst finish at Penske was 5th. Otherwise, he's been 1st or 2nd. 3 straight seconds in the series. But at Indy, outside of 2016,
no podiums.
When he finished 3rd, that's his only podium, even though I know they don't have a podium at Indy. And yes, he had 3 straight top 10s, with 2 of them being top 5s, 2019 and 2020. But it was never really in the conversation for wins there. And Penske's really struggled since Penske himself took over the Speedway in the series.
And his top finish wasn't even with Team Penske. It was in his final year with Ed Carpenter Racing. And that was the 3rd in 2016. And look, I understand it with Joseph Newgarden. He's still, 31 years old. He'll turn 32 actually today. Happy birthday, Joseph Newgarden.
Happy
How about
birthday.
that? He was 32 today, really, honestly. And he's a guy that, yes, has a lot of years in front of him still with IndyCar, but he's starting to reach that age where you start getting a little concerned. When you're in your 20s, mid-20s, he's a great driver. It's going to come eventually. It's inevitable. Now you're 32 years old. And 32 can turn into 38 really quick. And 38 turns into 44 really quick. And all I'm saying is he has a great opportunity now to do it for Team Penske. Is he around with Team Penske for another 8 to 10 years? I mean, anything's possible. Who knows? And so I personally hope every May we always go into the short list as Joseph Newgarden, right? And we have to factor in the struggles for Team Penske the last couple of years at Indy, but it always seems like entering May, plenty of people are picking Joseph Newgarden. And now he's 32 years old, folks. He's getting up there in terms of racecraft and race age. And he's got a lot of years in front of him, but it can end in an instant. All it takes is one injury, right? And so you'd like to see Joseph Newgarden pick up that win at Indianapolis to cement him as one of the best drivers of his generation in 2023. That's on my wish list.
Well, and look, Marcus Ericsson was 31 when he won this year.
Yeah, he was up there in age. He was
he's
an older
32
rookie
now.
Yeah, he was an older for a rookie a couple years ago. Yeah.
But to win this year, I mean, he's been one of the younger guys. Before that, Elio, Sato, Simon was in his mid-30s by the time he won. Well, Power, Sato again, Rossi obviously the exception, then Montoya, Hunter-Reay, Kanaan, Franchitti, Dan Weldon.
It's an older group, of course, that wins this race.
Elio, Dixon. I mean, the last handful of years, you've had guys, again, outside of Ericsson, majority have been in their 40s when they've won. So, or close. So it's become an older man's game. You get more experience, you learn the tricks, you learn everything. And Newgarden's very talented. Do I think he wins at Indy 500 before it's all said and done? Yes. Yes, I do.
I would just love, as a Joseph Newgarden fan, to get that win out of the way as opposed to entering your mid, late 30s, early 40s, still chasing that elusive first win.
And that's a guy you can absolutely market. You just got to find a way to get him out there and get in front of the right people.
Yes.
Not that you can't market any of these guys or gals, but these drivers are marketable. You just have to tap into it.
Some of them are easier than others, and
yes.
Joseph Newgarden makes it easy.
Absolutely.
All right, your second on your wish list.
Second on my wish list, Milwaukee Mile announced
really
for the 2024 schedule.
And your third is Michigan, and your fourth is Cleveland. No,
fifth is Fontana. No. No, I think that in particular, look, fans have been clamoring for this to come back. It looks like a possibility with the truck series
back, yeah.
It's going to be racing there. They approved funds for improvements as well. I want to see it announced next year in 2023 that IndyCar will return to the Milwaukee Mile in 2024. I think this is a possibility. I really do. And I hope that the series continues to market these events and make them big events, add a lot of... Look, you either have to do concerts or a ton of on-track action for ovals to work outside of the Indy 500, which has all the pre-race stuff, and it's just a big event. People want to be at a big event, be seen and seen at a big event. So I think adding Milwaukee, I mean, that's a positive step as far as the evolution of the schedule. And I'm not saying you need to go back to all these places, but you need to find a balance. And I think my next wish, put the Milwaukee Mile back on the schedule. That's a positive sign of growth and also of just learning how to make ovals work. And that would be a sign of that, in my opinion, because that means you're adding an oval.
And my thing, too, was it would be anybody out there that has asked, clamored for, begged, prayed for the Milwaukee Mile to be back on the schedule, better get off their ass and go to that race.
And I've been there twice, so
not talking to you.
Yeah, I would like to go again. Milwaukee's a great town to visit too.
I don't want to hear anything moaning and groaning about cost, about tickets, about prices, about time of the day. I don't want to hear it. If Milwaukee's back on the schedule, shut up and go. Because plenty of you people out there have been wanting Milwaukee back. And if it is, look, IndyCar's tried this before with the Andretti Promotions Group. You can argue whether it was a great idea or not in terms of their approach, but the fact is they brought IndyCar back to Milwaukee and it failed because people didn't show up, because people didn't like the time of day it was and where it was and the other things going on. Is, look, you're there to watch an IndyCar race. If it's that important to you, then go to the race. And if it comes back and fails again, then I have no desire whatsoever to go back to Milwaukee. And I don't feel any remorse to anybody that's upset about it. If you don't go, if you don't support it, then shut up.
Rant over? You're fired up?
I'm just saying. I mean, everybody clamors for these ovals and then nobody shows up. And yeah. I know people are upset by Iowa and the prices, and I get that. But at the same time, if you want it to be successful and swallow your pride or swallow, and it sucks. I have to pay $400, $500 for a couple of seats for a week. You're supporting the sport. In the end, it's important to the sport and the viability of the sport. Just pay the money.
Pay the man.
Pay the man.
All right.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but just pay the man.
What's your number 2?
I want to see a plan from IndyCar in 2023. I want to see what Jay Fry used to have before Roger Penske took over. Is in 3 years, we're going to have this. In 5 years, we're going to have this. In 7 years, we're going to have this. This is what we're looking at 10 years out. I want a plan. We have not gotten a plan since Roger Penske took this thing over and he bought it out. I understand that he was trying to save the sport, save the series. I appreciate him for that. That's 2 years ago. That's yesterday's news. Okay. What have you done the last 2 years to grow this sport? And I need to see a plan. And whether that's engine formula, that's chassis, whether it's new events, whether it's any type of push for diversity or women, whatever, the initiatives, I need to see a plan. Because I'm not buying that IndyCar has one in the current state. Jay Fry could have been blowing it out his ass at this point, but at least he was saying he had a plan, and it seemed to be falling into place, and you could find some positives in that as moving forward. But right now, we're directionless at this point. We have no plan. There may be an internal plan. I kind of question if there is or not.
We don't know of a 1 year plan, a 2 year, a 3 year, a 4 year, a 5 year, 10 year.
What does this sport look like in 2026?
Almost like they need a marketing plan.
Man,
right?
Wouldn't that be wild? 2028, 2030, 2035. What does this look like?
Announce some sort of initiative, IndyCar 2030. What does IndyCar look like?
What does IndyCar look like? We had it with the Indianapolis 500, right? With the 100th anniversary.
Yes.
And this is what it looked like. And as much as I appreciate Roger Penske and what he's done, so much, arguably too much focus has gone on the Indianapolis 500 and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I understand that both of those pretty much subsidize the rest of the series. And maybe it's approach of, I need to solidify those things before I worry about the rest. And that's understandable.
But they're solidified.
But at this point, you're fine. So what about the rest of the series? And we've heard about Roger Penske say the goal was to make the series profitable outside of the Indianapolis 500. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But what's the plan to get there? Or what's the plan to push new technologies? What's the plan to open up engine regulations at least a little bit to lure in a third engine manufacturer? What is the plan for this series in the next 3, 5, 10 years? I would love to see that in 2023.
I'm going to stick to the schedule. I also want to see in 2023 an international race, and I'm not talking Canada. They already raced there. An international race announced for IndyCar in 2024, whether it's Mexico, Argentina, somewhere else that's willing to pay a ton of money to send IndyCar there and make it a worthwhile event. I want to see that because I want to see IndyCar get back to those events because that means there's a draw outside of North America. And also that means that IndyCar can find a way to have profitable events outside the Midwest that you can count on and expand the schedule, whether it's earlier in the year or later in the year, either one.
And maybe be a cash infusion to some of these teams.
Yes.
I don't care about going to Australia or maybe Australia is different. I don't care about going to the Middle East.
Australia would be a draw in the sense that, you have Will Powers, Scott Dixon, Scott McLaughlin.
As long as you're going somewhere that's really popular with IndyCar. So Australia makes sense. New Zealand, of course, makes sense. Argentina makes sense. Middle East or Central America makes sense. Mexico makes sense. If you're going to Dubai just to go to Dubai, that makes no sense to me. If you're going to China just to go to China, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is going to a place internationally that makes sense for IndyCar, both financially and also fan-wise in terms of really growing your popularity. And I think that's Australia, that's Argentina, that's anywhere really in South America. It's anywhere right now in Central America at this point. I'm not counting Canada, much like you, but I agree. I would hope in 2023 we have an announcement, either Argentina or Mexico at this point.
Yeah, those are the two priorities. Anything outside of that, I guess I'd be skeptical unless it's an insane amount of money and the check clears.
Yeah, as long as the check clears.
It's always the concern. All right,
I mean, I would love to have a second Canada race, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah, I don't think that's a possibility right now. Unfortunately, I'd love there to be 3, to be honest. But one is what we have for now. What's your number 3?
So you took my international races.
Yeah.
I guess I'll bring up the elephant in the room with third OEM.
Yeah, I knew someone would bring it up eventually.
Somebody had to. Can we have somebody get on board in 2023? Right now, I've never been more skeptical at this point for somebody to jump on board. Maybe the way this thing has gone, maybe the time that you least expect it works out. Similar to a relationship, right? The least expect you're going to meet somebody, it actually turns into something really big. So maybe that's where we're at with IndyCar. The expectations are done, they're low, and maybe something will come out of the woodwork. My wish list, and maybe it's the most fantastical idea or opportunity or wish, would be a third OEM commit to the series.
Yeah, and yes, that wouldn't be something that would be in place till what, like probably
2025,
26?
If you committed in 23, it would be at least 25.
Yeah, and probably 26.
Depending on what time of the year it was, yeah.
But just something to give fans a hope. And I think part of it is just having rigid engine regulations.
You have to loosen them up a little bit.
Yeah, you got to find equivalency type stuff. And look, that's what they do in sports cars, right? And IndyCar used to do that back in the day, with the Buicks and the pop-off valves, all that stuff at Indy. So you just have to find a way to make it work. But you have to get someone to lighten the load, because the last thing IndyCar can survive right now is Chevy or Honda or both leaving the series.
How do you open up the regulations just a little bit to allure a different OEM in without pissing off Chevy and Honda? Because they've been told the longest time is these are the regulations. You have to meet these regulations. So how do you add that wrinkle without pissing them off?
Well, and they're also told that, here's what we have. We feel confident we're going to get a third.
Right.
So
maybe they would be open to it because they're shouldering the load.
I think they'd be open to it as long as they feel that there's competitive balance. That's what it's always
and
about.
They have enough opportunity to then get in front of it if the regulations do indeed change.
Yes.
So, we'll see.
It's an obvious third, but it was
all right,
bound to be said.
You're number 4.
Number 4. This is where it starts to get a little trickier, but this is an obvious one. In 2023, I want to see legitimate bumping of the Indy 500. I'm not talking 1 or 2 cars. I'm talking 3 or more at a minimum.
So 36. I think the max we're getting right now in the current engine room is 36. Yeah. You want to see 36?
I want to see 36.
Yeah. So you're bumping 3. Would you bump 2? We've seen it before.
I mean, because that's how it's set up, but I'd like to see 36 or more. That's on my wish list. Plain and simple. And we saw 36 in 2019.
It's possible. 18 each.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say probable. I think you can get to 35. I don't know if you can get 36. We'll see. I think Honda at this point is more willing to go a little bit more.
But they'll go to 19.
Maybe. You go 19,
18
17.
Sure.
Depends on who's in those seats too. You want to see bumping at least, right?
Yeah, and I want to see 3 or more. That's very important because it just feels like it has a legitimacy to it.
So, unfortunately for me, my thinking is 2, probably more realistic, and I guess that gives me enough bumping excitement is 2. I'd much rather have 3. But I think realistically you have 2, 35.
All right, what's your number 4?
I want to see Linus Lundqvist in a seat for a considerable amount of time. Not just for Linus Lundqvist, because he has earned it, but also for the entire system of the road to Indy, whatever the hell we're supposed to call it, is if the system to develop talent and get them into IndyCar based on performance doesn't equate to actually presenting that, then the entire thing falls apart. And for me, Linus Lundqvist needs, what do you think, Caleb? 3 races at least to be quote unquote fair.
Yes.
For a guy that has that not just won Indy Lights, dominated Indy Lights. This isn't a guy that just stumbled upon a championship. It's a dude that's dominated the road to Indy and especially Indy Lights. Linus Lundqvist doesn't race in at least 3 IndyCar events in 2023. The system is broken, and that's a problem. That's a big problem for IndyCar.
Yeah, not having him participate, like he's got to participate in more than just the Indy 500 for me to be satisfied.
Correct. Yes.
That's
the month of May. Like, I need 3 minimum.
Yes, and it's just like they completely screwed him over. Look, he's clearly talented. I just hope there is a way to make this work. And look, we still have that second coin seat we're still waiting on, along with the second car at Juncos. Obviously, the coin seat is way more likely.
Right.
But we got to see him in a car for more than just a race or 2, 3 minimum. I want to see what he can do. He's clearly talented. He just needs a shot. And unfortunately, we saw this with many guys before, Pato O'Ward most recently, and he got lucky to get back into it. I mean, it was just the right situation fell into his lap with McLaren. Yeah,
I did. It worked out for him. But when we look at this entire setup, when we've been fed ad nauseum year after year that this is the greatest minor league system in autosport, and the problem with Europe is eventually you run into Formula 2 and you dominate there, and there's just no avenue to Formula 1, and you are in danger of becoming similar to that if your Indy Lights champions are not going to IndyCar. And you can say, well, this is merely a 1-year thing, but 1 year can turn into multiple years pretty damn quick. And it's going to prevent drivers from coming over because you're seeing so many drivers from Europe come over to try the Indy ladder. And you're also going to really impact the teams that invest in Indy Lights and knowing they have an opportunity to propel their drivers into the Indianapolis 500. And sponsorship will dry up. So this is a multi-level type thing. This isn't just about Linus Lundqvist. This isn't about immediate impact in 2023. This is the actual building blocks of the series and the principles of what this thing was all developed to be about, getting drivers into the IndyCar series, failing its champions. And if you do that, then the thing can quickly fall apart.
My final thing, I want to see either Colton Herta or Pato O'Ward win the championship. I know everyone's going to talk about F1 aspirations if that happens. I don't care. I just want to see one of these young guns win it and get the attention on IndyCar.
Yeah.
Not just from Formula One, but get people in racing, get the attention on them. They're talented. I want to see them close the deal, finish it off, because I think that'd be huge for the series. They're both very marketable, and they're both some of the best talents IndyCar has had in quite some time.
I would definitely agree. Take advantage of what you have. This goes to IndyCar marketing in terms of marketing these guys anytime they're in Formula One and FP1s or anything they're in the paddock at Formula One. Blow it up, but also you'd love to see them be successful on track. This is what the two-way street kind of goes with Formula One, is you're having people come over from Formula One, but you also want to send a couple drivers to Formula One as well. I would like nothing more than to have some sort of rooting interest in Formula One outside of rooting against certain people and certain drivers and certain teams. So if we can see that, all the merrier. Look, these guys are young guys. Let's take Pato O'Ward, and he even said it. He in his mind thinks, okay, at some point I'm going to go to Formula One, and at some point I'm going to come back to IndyCar, because there's not much longevity in terms of Formula One unless you're winning world championships. So for these guys, let them go over there and experience it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They'll be back, and I think it can only help IndyCar.
Bourdais lasted all of about a season and a half when he went over from Champ Car.
Yeah.
So that goes to show how tough it is. All right, your final one.
I want in 2023, and it would happen to have to happen in May, is I want to be put in a headlock by Tony Kanaan. This has gone on long enough with our discussion about, is he a legend? Is he not a legend? I love the discussions, the banter we have. I just want the opportunity to walk up to Tony Kanaan and bend at the waist and him just grab my neck and put me in a headlock.
You have it.
I have low expectations for 2023, but that would be at the apex of IndyCar goals. Is if I can say I've been put in a headlock by Tony Kanaan for not calling him a legendary driver of the sport, then the year is made for me.
There you have it. There's our wish list for 2023.
Noogie optional. I'll take it, but headlock at least.
Headlock at a minimum. If you agree or disagree with our wish list, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can find us at newtrackrecordpodcast.com. While you're there, check out the store. We have t-shirts and stickers for sale for you. Also, subscribe to the email list. It's free. You'll never miss an episode, plus any special announcements we make. And you can check us out on Patreon. Become a supporter. We have 4 supporter tiers for you. Patreon.com/newtrackrecord. All starts as little as $1 a month. Thanks to Xavier, Rob, and others for their support. You can find us on social media, IndyCar Podcast, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. Just search New Track Record. And you can also email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Finally, you can follow us for free on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcasts, all for free. All right, short amount in the mailbag, but we'll roll through. This from C. Martin 88. LOL, what's with IndyCar fans not letting this Ford thing go? They're never coming back, even if things were good here.
Correct.
Yeah, probably not in our lifetime.
I think it's just further validation that IndyCar is not very desirable for OEMs right now.
Not right now,
no.
Obviously.
Because Ford has said no. They've said multiple times no. And not only are they saying no to IndyCar, but they're saying maybe to Formula One. And this is a brand that Ford doesn't, and this is the thing, I don't know if it was in the mailbag or what, is Ford doesn't need the boost nationally in terms of eyes. So IndyCar doesn't really make sense to Ford. But worldwide, if Ford is trying to expand its product overseas continually, Formula One makes all the sense in the world, folks. It just makes total lot of sense. Ford doesn't need help selling more F-150s every year because, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like the top selling car, truck, minivan, whatever, like 10 straight years, something like that. So they don't need help in the United States. They're looking to grow their brand internationally, worldwide, and that's Formula One, folks, not IndyCar.
Meanwhile, people commenting and needing an infusion of young, dynamic, diverse personalities into the brain trust. A couple of replies there. A-Knight_210 will happily take up that job because what they just did is beyond stupid. Talking about the iRacing thing. Jeremy from HBG says, pretty sure I heard that in the correct host's voice. Yeah, that was Justin who tweeted that. So if you're guessing, there's your answer.
The correct host is always Caleb, by the way.
Sure. Hunter's Way 67, as far as new ideas that we've seen under Penske and new things, says, I'll give them adding Nashville. It's a great market to be in. But yeah, that was well in the works before Penske was in charge. And
I brought up that point outside of saving the series during COVID. And make no mistake, I'm not marginalizing that whatsoever. Since then, what has Roger Penske and the Penske Corporation done positively for IndyCar? Not IMS, not the Indianapolis 500. I'm saying the series, Indianapolis 500. If you made a list right now, excluding the Indianapolis 500 and IMS and excluding the COVID crisis, positives and negatives, it's a pretty skewed list, in my opinion. What has been the benefit over the last 2 years that Roger Penske has brought to this series? It's not very much.
Keeping the doors open.
It's not very much. I mean, after that, though, like, okay, you did that for us and we're appreciative, but what have you done for us lately? And right now, it's very little.
R. Cole says, from the outside, it doesn't look like they've done a lot to advertise, promote the races anymore than the previous regime. But I'm hopeful there's been a lot of internal changes, like rebuilding a team takes time, so does an entire series. Yeah, it seems to be they're having internal changes for the first time since Penske took over.
Is it internal changes? Is it an internal strife? Is there a direction? Is there a directionless? That's why if we had a plan in place, if we had this is in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, we'd feel a little bit better about where they're at if there was a plan. Maybe there is a plan. Maybe there isn't a plan. We don't know.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. Sig Domer says they've done nothing to expand the series. All Roger did was bring in the grounds crew from Augusta National to landscape IMS. Oh, yeah, and paint the bathrooms.
Yeah, there's only so much excitement that I can get with the manicured grass. That's great. And yeah, the bathrooms are tremendous. In the end, I'd still just go there to pee. What's it matter?
Yeah, true.
Right? I mean, whether I'm peeing in a urinal or a trough, I'm still just peeing. I'm just trying to expel some liquid so I can go get more beer and watch more racing.
Playing Spades, talking about the iRacing stuff. I know y'all told us not to read the comments, but man, what is this series doing? Any thoughts? Yeah, we kind of shared them earlier, but all in all, I'll be curious if there is some sort of resolution, but I'm not holding my breath.
Doesn't sound like IndyCar, anything is imminent right now. And I don't know enough about iRacing to know how big of a deal it is. If you read social media, it's a huge deal. But I think anytime you are alienating anybody that's interested in IndyCar, it's a bad move.
That wraps up the mailbag. Time for news and notes. Not a whole lot to get to. I think the leading thing, a test for Robert Schwartzman, the F2 guy. He's set to test with Ganassi. This, I think, is obviously not for the oval seat with Marcus Armstrong, but this is a replacement for Alex Palou, potentially.
Right. I don't know if this is a 2023 opportunity as much as we're looking at a 2024 opportunity for Robert Schwartzman.
He's the Ferrari Formula One test driver at the moment. Schwartzman, first of a few drivers who will test for Ganassi. No details from the racer article where the test will be. Set to be in January for the test.
Someplace warm, I imagine.
Yes. One would assume. So also Kyle Busch, he had some comments the other day, latest on trying to do the Indy 500. Bad news, everything has kind of gone dark, he said. Unfortunately, the teams with Chevrolet power plants all kind of have deals lined up. IndyCar racing in general is sort of stretched thin on people right now to do a fourth effort. One of those teams to go out and find enough people to do it doesn't make sense and it isn't going to work.
McLaren.
I know being a race team owner on the truck side, if we wanted to run a fourth truck, it would really be difficult to do. The people you get to do that aren't people who necessarily travel every week, know the ins and outs of the racetrack. I understand the dynamic of that. It's not yet the right time.
He's talking about McLaren, and I could see McLaren in 2024.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's kind of the logical next step. Meanwhile, Romain Grosjean says Scott McLaughlin should have an F1 test. I'd like to see it. I mean, he's had success at every level. Be interesting.
Probably needs to have more success at the IndyCar level to get on that radar, but I don't want to say he's too old, but he's not in the age range in which Formula One teams are looking for drivers.
Unfortunately, that would be correct.
I mean, to be honest, like who's the last driver over 25 to enter Formula One? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know
you're
either.
seeing a lot of 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds enter Formula One. There's not a lot of quote-unquote veterans entering Formula One. And Scott McLaughlin is what, late 20s?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that may as well be 50 at this point in Formula One. So, I'm not sure. And, him being with Team Penske doesn't necessarily make it necessarily easy to get an F1 test either. He was McLaren. If he was Andretti in a couple years with Andretti Global, we imagine they'll be in Formula One in some capacity. Maybe. But Team Penske, it's going to be difficult.
Meanwhile, some other news in IndyCar. Chevy is shifting their IndyCar effort to a new technical center in North Carolina. This is not really a surprise. It's the GM Charlotte Technical Center in North Carolina. They'll do a lot of R&D stuff in-house there. Article on racer.com. You can get more into the weeds on that one.
I mean, that's where everything else is for Chevy. Just makes sense.
And same another technical thing. Marshall Pruitt, StoryRacer.com. They're introducing new and stronger rear wheel tethers.
Way over my head, but good. The last thing you need is wheels bouncing around.
Yes. And IndyCar confirmed the male partnership, that's MAHLE, for
thanks.
Development of the hybrid power plants. Pruitt had written about that many months ago.
Also, some added information on the test at Thermal.
Yes.
That will come up, and no grandstands or seating there, but per the article at racer.com, those could be added if an event is added for 2024.
And it will be streamed. It's just not clear if it's NBC Sports via Peacock or IMS Productions doing something internally across IndyCar and their social media channels. Plus, also confirmed, IndyCar's drivers will spend Tuesday and Wednesday in preseason media days in Palm Springs. You got to remember, NASCAR is at the LA Coliseum that weekend. So IndyCar's trying to get in on that. And look, the motorsports media is already going to be heading out there. So this is just a way to get more attention. Look, you don't need to have the media days in Indy every year. And I think this test is a way to get attention. Look, they got a lot of attention out of the COTA test several years ago. So this is the same kind of thing, in my opinion.
I hope it works out. And the thing in thermal, I have my trepidations about it. If it brings in some movers and shakers with a lot of money and a lot of interest in IndyCar, then it's worth it. So we'll see what happens.
Meanwhile, Zach Brown reveals Lando Norris wants future tilt at Indianapolis 500, playing an F1 article. Yeah, we'll see if that ever actually happens.
Believe it when I see it.
And then a couple other quick notes. Tickets on sale for the Tire Rack Battle on the Bricks IMSA Sports Car event at IMS. You can get your tickets there. Plus, the schedule is out for SRX.
Thursday night.
Yes.
Now, we talked about
Thursday
that
night
last week.
on ESPN. So that will be interesting. Something we'll be sure to check out. All right. Tweets of the week time. And really just one tweet that stood above the rest. IndySoup.com on Twitter opens Twitter. It looks for IndyCar news. Opens Photoshop. High fee as opposed to high V. Same logo.
Hey.
Great stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Random split error driver of the week time.
Going with a guy that is familiar, is an unfamiliar, familiar guy, if that makes sense, in John Erb.
Yes.
And a guy that's been around multiple seasons from 2000 to, I want to say, 2002 he was around, and then mid-2000s made a couple of appearances for, in 2007, Racing Professionals. Remember the Racing Professionals?
No, I do
Me
not.
neither. That was John Erb's team.
I remember Playa Racing in 2006, though.
That was the Racing Professionals. I think you could use professionals pretty liberally at that point. Finished 32nd at Indy and 20th at Texas in 2007. But his best season, I guess you could say, would be in 2001 with TriStar Motorsports. He raced in 4 races that year. And 6 races, excuse me. Did a couple races with PDM Racing. A high finish of 9th at the second Texas race in 2001. And that was his lone top 10, I want to say. Yes, it was. His lone top 10. Unfortunately for John Erb, different things are making him popular or unpopular at this point. Racing in the IRL, racing ARCA, but was also and is a convicted sex offender. And this is a big deal. Is in 2013, he was charged with numerous counts of possession of child pornography. Erb's wife reportedly went to a police station after finding pictures of nude girls on Erb's laptop. Photos on the laptop also allegedly depicted Erb engaged in sexual acts with a girl who appeared to be 4 years old. This is insanity. In 2016, pleaded no contest, blah, blah, blah. Sentenced to 25 years in prison. Under current Florida law, he is required to serve at least 85% of his prison sentence. So John Erb in jail. And for good reason.
Yes.
As somebody that was not a good dude, from what it sounds like, off the track. But a guy that on track raced for the Bird McCormick Racing, for TriStar Racing, and his own team, Racing Professionals. 16 starts, 0 wins, 0 poles, and his top finish of 9th at Texas 2 in 2009. And 2001. Excuse me. And currently in jail. This week's Random Split Error Driver of the Week, Mr. John Erb.
I think that's the first time we've done a Random Split Error Driver of the Week where they're currently in jail.
Oh, maybe that's something we'll do a spinoff, is current IndyCar Drivers of the Week in jail. I mean, I didn't think we had one, but we have one. We'll start there.
Yeah. there you have it.
There you go. Something to cheer you up around the holiday season, Mr. John Erb.
It's a Random Split Error Driver of the Week. We'll take a couple of weeks off. We'll be back the second week of January. So probably January 12th. That's when we will return for you after taking a break for the holidays, as we do every year. There's not a whole lot going on anyway. So we'll be back with you January 12th or thereabouts, before or after Thanks for joining us as we wrap up 2022 here on New Track Record Podcast.
Podcasts by Federated Media.